some people point to mu as being like alpha, and mu is alpha-like. It's a rhythm. It's slightly faster, usually, than the parietal alpha prominence by about a half a cycle to a cycle a second. And it's monomorphic. And monomorphic is a shape. It looks like a wicket fence. It's sometimes called the wicket rhythm. It's round on the top, pointed on the bottom, or upside down from that. You can reverse the polarity very easily. And what we basically see here is a rhythm that's going to have, uh, let's say this is a 10 hertz rhythm. It's 10 hertz, but the pointy part of it, because it's not a sine wave, the Fourier will find you a harmonic. If this is 10, you see a 20. It's not because there's inherently a 20 hertz rhythm there. It's because the waveform is not sinusoidal, and the Fourier assumes everything's a sine wave. So when it decomposes this, it has trouble because this is not what it's not. It doesn't meet the assumptions of the Fourier. It's not a sine wave. If you've seen enough EEG, there's a lot of stuff that's not sinusoidal. And the Fourier also assumes you have a stable state, that you're not going from wake to drowsing to sleep. You've got a stable state that's being evaluated. EEG is full of state changes. People go from wake to drowsing spontaneously all the time. And it assumes no transience. If you've seen enough EEG, it's full of transience. It assumes that it started at the beginning of time and lasts forever. Well, what kind of an assumption is that? Nobody starts at the beginning of time and goes on to forever. So the Fourier really is violated by pretty much everything that we see in EEG. So let me project this so they're a little larger images. So this is the mu, and it's seen centrally. And when you look at it in a map with the eyes closed, you see C3, C4 is the mu, and alpha at the back of the head. Barry Sturman, when he came up with SMR as a feature, when he went to the first EEG meeting to present his data, Henri Gastaud, who is a French electroencephalographer, dismissed it as just being mu. So Barry really doesn't like the term mu, but he'll call it owl eyes if it's eyes open, and monkey face if the eyes are closed. This is eyes closed. You can see C3, C4 dots there, and that's the mu with the monkey face, which would be the jowls of the monkey. But again, it's alpha at the back, and it's mu, C3, C4. Mu is related to alpha, but it's not the same as the rest of the background alpha. Mu is there when the frontal lobes mirror neurons are disconnected. It's a rhythm like alpha happening at the back of the head when you close your eyes. Mu happens when you disconnect from the outside world in a meaningful way. You're not mimicking or mirroring the outside world, either with language or emotion. At that point, mu happens. It's present in 15% of the normal population, but it's present in 70% of the autism, 50% of the attentional and affective disorders. So, and it's disproportionately present in athletes, elite athletes, not just, I played high school basketball or something. We're talking about elite athletes. They've got a disproportionately large amount of mu. Um, they
Why is
suggest,
that, Jay?
well, they call it positive dissociation. That term was actually, I think, coined by Santiago Brand, and I think it's a very good description of it. If you're going to get into your zone, which is an internal state, you have to be able to turn off the outside world to get into your internal zone in some circumstances. Go to a track meet sometime. It's organized chaos. There's people over there throwing stuff, and there's people over here running, and there's people over here jumping, and there's all this cacophony of noise, and the crowds in various locations are screaming and jumping and yelling, and here you are ready for your event, and you've got to get into your zone. Well, there's a lot of outside distractions. If you can't turn all that shit off, you're going to be in deep shit. So you really have to be able to, center yourself. And the athletes themselves say, well, to get in the zone, I have to kind of become more internal. I can't be distracted externally. And, so it's a positive dissociation. It is a dissociation. People with a lot of mu that are in the autism spectrum usually have a detachment. There's a dissociation going on in those. And again, 70% of the autism, 15% of the normals. So, mu is a normal variant neurologically. Now, there's no tumor, there's no stroke, there's no AVM, arteriovenous malformation. You can't go in there and find something wrong at C3, C4 location. It's not an abnormality, it's a functional state or a dysfunctional state, depending upon if it's a positive dissociation or not. So, uh, it's mu is mu. It's a disconnect from the outside world. And again, it's not that common in normals. It's more common in clinical pathology and occasionally in a functional disconnect that may be useful, like an athlete. So it's in the alpha range, and it's considered a normal generator of background rhythmicity. Again, mu isn't the same as background alpha, but it's very common. Now, this is uh, basically mu. You can see the phase reversal. This is a sequential or bipolar montage, FP1, F3, F3, C3, C3, P3, E3, O1. C3 is common to these two channels. And you can see the phase reversal is because it's in grid 2 of this channel and grid 1 of this channel. So the phase reversal shows you the mu. Now, on the right side, C4 has got this kind of a piddly little mu going on. And at this point, you can see a bunch of little buttons being pushed. The tech who's running this identified the fact that there was a well-organized mu, what they thought might be mu, and they said, well, how do you prove it's mu? Well, it looks like mu. It's the right frequency. It's the right waveform. But the last thing to do to test that it's actually mu is to have them wiggle the fingers, because this is the hand area on the homunculus. This is the area that regulates the hand. If you wiggle the fingers on the right hand, the mu will go away. So they started to have them wiggle the fingers. So they're simply clicking here to indicate that the fingers are being wiggled. The mu goes away. On this side, the right side still has some mu because it's the right hand, the left brain that was being requested. Now, it also goes away with intention to move, but if you tell somebody to intend, how do you know? So I can intend to move my finger and quit intending. I didn't move a damn thing. And you can't tell if I'm intending or not because that's a covert state unless you're looking for it. So we tell them to wiggle their fingers rather than telling them to intend to wiggle their fingers. It's a pretty direct statement as to what to do. So it's easily judged. You can tell if they're wiggling them or not. And when you see the wiggles, you simply press the button. So a very good tech, again, sees the mu, tells the client to wiggle the fingers on the contralateral hand. The mu goes away, confirming that it was, in fact, mu. I have heard people talk about autistics that the mu doesn't block with movement. I've yet to see that. Yeah, I'd like somebody that says they see that to actually demonstrate it sometime. Movement blocks mu really quite completely, and those that say that they move and it didn't change, I would like to see those studies. Of all the EEGs I've seen, and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of them, I have yet to see that. So I would invite somebody who says they can see muse stick around in an autistic when they're wiggling their fingers. I'd love to see the demonstration. Anyway, this is you see this montage, this point in time, 258, 258, same exact time. this is the same chunk of data with a different montage. This is all referential. And again, left mu, right mu. And the left mu disappeared when the buttons were pushed. This is the same data with a different montage. And you can see the unilateral nature of the reaction. The right side stuck around, the left side disappeared. What's it look like? Well, this is eyes open mu, which gives you the owl eye pattern that Barry talks about. There's probably some central alpha, but C3, C4 are the mu frequencies. Dominant here at 10, 11, disappears at 11, 12, but it's in the alpha band, C3, C4. This is uh, uh, this is basically the EEG. Here you have open and close the right hand, and if you look carefully, the right side still has a little faint bit of mu. The left side, the mu is gone. So the montage you display it in is important as well. Here's a linked ear montage. You can see the mu is kind of powder blue. It's not really distinct. This excuse me, this is a Laplacian montage, and you can see C3, C4 mu. This is linked ears. And if you say you can see the mu here, it's kind of more difficult. This is a CZ montage. Now CZ sits right between C3, C4. It's so close. Basically, it's got some of the same content that basically cancels the ability to see it. So the montage you're using when you're looking at the EEG can make it more easily identifiable. The Laplacian montages are the easiest way to see it. Linked ears is a little bit more difficult, and if you use a CZ reference, it's a mistake if you're looking for mu. So this is the CZ reference mu, C3, C4. This it's hard to spot them there. This is Fjorth or Laplacian montage, C3, C4. This is linked ears, C3, C4. Again, the montage you're using ends up making a big difference as to whether you can see the mu, which is a form of background alpha. Again, it's its own name. It's got its own generator. It's a bit of a different feature, but when we're talking about mu, we've got to talk about it as well. So